Hey everybody, I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. Today I wanted to share with you a plant find that I just picked up yesterday that I've been looking for a while and I haven't been able to find until yesterday, and it is this. This is Callicarpa americana, or American Beautyberry. It is a native plant that is just amazing in the fall. If you check out these clusters of berries, they are all along the stems on all the branches, and this grows much larger than what you see here in this pot. And it will look amazing every fall. So today I just wanted to kind of highlight that a little bit with you, and then I'm going to go ahead and plant it, and you'll kind of see what my plans are for some of our more native areas on the property. Now, the most amazing features, the most striking things about this plant are obviously these berries, and they are just amazing. Just look at how many of them are around each of these nodes on the branches. It just continues all the way up the branch. You can see on this end over here, there's a little that haven't quite gotten ripened up yet. They're still kind of green, but we've got a ton here that are this nice dark purple color. Now, this is an American Beautyberry, and American Beautyberry is well known for being able to make jelly or jams out of the berries. It also, there's some evidence that you can take the leaves and create a mosquito repellent from it. So a lot of good features about this plant, and it makes it well worth planting. There are other varieties of beautyberry out there, and we had one of them at our other home before we moved here. It was Callicarpa dichotoma, which is actually the early amethyst variety is what we had, and it comes from Asia. So it's an Asian beautyberry. It's a beautiful plant too, but I wanted to make sure that I was planting natives and trying to get away from some of the more exotic type of plants. But they're both beautiful plants. We really enjoyed it at the other place, and but I definitely wanted to go native with this one because I just think this one is so much more beautiful with these berries, the way that the berry clusters form. On the early amethyst, they were a little bit more side to side. They kind of came out a little bit on these little branches that produced the flowers, and so it didn't quite have the same cluster effect that this particular one does. Now, whenever I buy a plant, I always think about, can I propagate that plant? So let's go through some of the options for it. First off, this is a non-patented variety. It is a native species, Callicarpa americana, so it is fair game to be propagated in any method that you want to propagate it. One of the simplest ways to actually propagate this, and you probably generate the most amount of plants through this method, is to do it from seed. There's a small little seed in each of these little berries, and you can clean off the berry pulp and everything off of it first, and then you plant it into a pot, keep it outdoors. They need about 60 to 90 days of cold stratification ideally. I think there's probably some that would germinate without that cold stratification, but that helps to improve your odds of getting some successful germination. And in the spring, when the weather warms up, they will start to grow. The next method, and the one I've done before, is to take softwood cuttings. So you can, in the spring, you take softwood cuttings off the stem tips and further down along the stem. Every time you cut something like that, it will generate more branches, so then you end up with more berries in the fall when you do a little bit of that kind of pruning. And then you can generate roots off of those stem cuttings. And I don't even think you need rooting hormone for this one, but I would go ahead and do it on this just to make sure I got some decent roots. Another method that you could do is hardwood cuttings. Now, hardwood cuttings typically you take in the winter time, a couple of months before the spring warm-up actually comes. So what I'll probably do is in January, February, sometime around that time period, I'll take some hardwood cuttings of this and maybe a few other plants and try to get them to root before spring comes, and then once spring is here, they will just start to grow and they'll be ready to plant outdoors in a couple of weeks after the warm-up. There's two other ways that you could potentially propagate beautyberry. One is by division. So if you happen to have a plant that had grown a little bit more and it had a separation that was nice and convenient, you could separate that off from the main plant. The other thing you could do is pin down one of these branches here into the soil. and you might want to scrape a little bit of the cambium layer off underneath the node and then put that part under the soil and keep the end of it up so that it can grow and get light and everything that it needs, and it will eventually generate roots along that stem. And a plant like this works really well with layering because you can just take that branch, which has already got this natural flexibility, to just go into the ground and generate those roots. So if you're concerned about taking cuttings and they may not work, try doing some layering, because that is a very good technique that really helps with troubleshooting a lot of different plants that have trouble propagating. It's just one of the more reliable ways to propagate a plant. Now, I was able to find a lot of resources online with people selling Beautyberry. I wasn't entirely convinced of the reliability that they weren't selling me the Asian variety instead. I was able to find this at a local nursery. I paid $37 right in that ballpark for this 3-gallon pot. I did notice that a lot of those online sellers were selling them in 1-gallon pots, and they were running probably $17 to $18 for the plant, but then I was getting charged $17 in shipping. And so this just made a whole lot more sense, having a much larger pot that I can go ahead and plant. It's a good, healthy plant that I can visually see, and that's just one of the benefits when you buy from your local nursery as opposed to buying through a mail order place. So this is one of my more wilder areas in the yard. I've got this pathway circle that you see here. I've got a lot of weeds in there like Johnson grass and some pokeweed popping up, but there's a lot of native plants here too. From the goldenrod, we've got some passion vine, passion flower, a lot of asters are popping up in places. And so I'm gradually thinning this out from the more invasive Johnson grass type things and putting in more plants that we actually are going to enjoy. Some are going to be native. I'm going to emphasize native, but some will not be native. But anyway, what I was going to do is right here in this location, because this is a really good spot that's visually, you can see it from a lot of places. And I'm going to clear out a small area of this so that I can create a spot for that Beautyberry. If you'll notice right in the middle, you can see some passion vine that's kind of this yellowish vine right there where my shadow's touching. And then behind it, there's some goldenrod, which is going to seed at this point. So it's okay for me to go ahead and clear some of this out. I'm going to take some hedge trimmers, cut it down, kind of scalp it to the ground as close as I can, and clear out a good location to plant this Beautyberry. Further down that pathway, I have 2 plum trees that are native plum trees. One is a Chickasaw plum, and the other is just the American plum tree. And I've got them set up here kind of on either sides of this pathway that goes into our wooded area. And so this whole zone is going to be just a pathway area with a lot of really cool plants, or at least that's what my goal is. American Beautyberry works really well in full sun locations. So if you've got somewhere that's full sun to maybe part shade, you've got a good spot for it. The other thing is with the soil, it's pretty tolerable of a lot of soils. The more rich it is, probably the better that it will do, but it can tolerate some poor soils. So, you know, if your soil isn't so great, like sometimes here in Tennessee we get a lot of clay and limestone, it can still function in those areas. So I'm going to use a set of hedge trimmers out here to clear an area for this. If you've got a lawnmower, you could do that too. I just didn't want to mess with all the gas and pull a mower out here for something that's just such a small little area that I'll be cutting. So I'm going to cut all this back and keep it down as low to the ground as I can. So I've got a bit of a semicircle here that I made for the Beautyberry with the hedge trimmers. I cut it as low to the ground as I could, and now I'm going to get my shovel out and dig a good hole. Typically I like to dig holes for trees and shrubs that are just a little bit larger than the actual container itself. I scuff up the interior of the holes so that the roots have places to grab at. And to me, I believe that you should have as much native soil that it's going to be growing into as possible so that it can adapt to that. So I don't add in extra soil beyond what is already here. Okay, so I'm going to bring this over here and kind of position it how I want it to look first, kind of see exactly where it's going to fit at. And I'll adjust the branches and everything just like this and kind of see how it is. Take a step back. See if that's how I want it. I think I actually want to move it over a little more to the right and maybe turn it slightly. There we go. Let's go with that. So next step, what I'm going to do is take the shovel and just kind of mark my hole around the pot where I've got it before doing anything else. That way I know exactly where I can make that hole. I'm coming out about 3 inches around the pot. We got some really dry dirt right now. I think we're supposed to get some rain tonight and tomorrow, so this is the ideal time to get a plant planted. All right, so let's move this out of the way, and I'll dig out the sod that's on top here. And it doesn't hurt to clear out a little extra around it, especially if this is an area that's had weeds in it before or plants you don't quite want to grow up and around it. Get some of that out of here. All right, so we'll dig the hole. Okay, and I like to scuff the sides of it. Typically to do that, I'm just sticking it with the edge of the shovel. That just loosens up and makes easier little grab holds for the roots when they start to grow. Before I take it out of the pot, I'm just going to check and see, and I think I've got enough depth there that this should go in without any problem. So typically to loosen up a pot, I just kind of knock it around a little bit on the sides, and then I'll take the crown of the plant and just gently pull it out, and you can see what our current root system looks like here for this plant. It is pretty extensive, looks nice and healthy, but I'm going to scuffle the edges of it to loosen it up because it may have been in the pot just a little too long. And by doing this, that will help some of those exterior roots loosen up a hair. All right, so let's check and see how the hole fits. And I think that'll be just fine because I want the top of this to be level with the top of here. We are on a slight grade, so if this is down below it just a little bit, that works out just fine. Now positioning wise, I'm going to turn this around because I want the berries to be nice and on display. And we can do some creative pruning as we go with this plant to make sure that it continues to grow upward and outward, more so than it is right here in the pot. I think when it's in the pot, sometimes they have a tendency to just droop over the pot, but we're going to want them to kind of grow up taller through here and then cascade downward. Okay, next up, we just fill in the dirt. And you can see kind of how our Tennessee dirt looks. A lot of clay in there. So we're just going to go ahead and fill up those holes. You can amend this plant just fine. You can add some compost to it. It will prefer a nice well-drained medium, but it can do just fine in clay. Of course, you need to put some water on it. Probably don't need to use a jet setting on your garden hose. Let's go for a nice garden setting. And then let this water in really good. Pull out any kind of roots that you don't want to grow here. Well, often we'll see Johnson grass kind of grow into the soil. You want to get those out every time you see one because it just really spreads a lot. But we're going to give this a nice thorough watering, and then we're going to put some mulch on top. For mulch, I'm just using this mixture of pine needles and leaves. These were things I had a landscaper drop off about, well, really it was last fall. And so they've been sitting for about a year. They're partially decomposed, but they should create a really nice, good layer of organic mulch. You can use hardwood mulch if you want to, but anything that is going to break down would be the most appropriate type of mulch, some sort of an organic material. Leaves, grass clippings, pine needles, hardwood, all that kind of stuff is good to use as a mulch here. We'll put about a 2 to 3 inch layer of it and kind of taper it off so that it kind of falls in the back a little bit. Now, one thing I really like about pine straw mulch is just how light it is and how easy it is to put on here. Hardwood mulch, a lot of times, can be pretty heavy, especially if it's a little bit wet. But the leaves here are also great too. So it's fall. If you have a lot of people around you who are trying to get rid of their leaves, contact their landscaper guy. See if they've got extra leaves that they can give you to either put in your compost bin or just put out around your plants. It is great stuff. My goal is to get out as far as the branches are laying, mostly so I can see them really well against the contrast of the pine needles. This one got buried a little bit. Let's get that up. Here we go. And so there's our American Beautyberry all ready to go. It's a showcase plant that can go right in this little circle area, and we'll just mow through the circle area. We're going right by it so people can enjoy it as they walk through the garden. So it's a really cool plant. I definitely hope you are interested in planting one in your garden, because I think there's a lot of great things about it. And hope this video was interesting. If it was, hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Growing the Home Garden. Thanks for watching.